Buried on page 14 of a legal document Prince Harry reportedly signed back in 2020 sits a single clause so devastating that, according to royal author Tom Bower, it could unravel his entire life. His name, his brand, his bond with his own children, his financial future, all of it allegedly hanging on language he is said to have never fully read. And what reportedly makes this even more chilling is that Harry allegedly signed it during one of the most emotionally shattered periods of his life without absorbing a single word. That one blind signature has reportedly been quietly moving money behind the scenes ever since. Now Bower is allegedly sounding one warning louder than any he has raised before. Harry, he says, needs to brace himself to lose absolutely everything. So what exactly is hidden in that clause, and how did it get past him? Stay with me, because this story runs far deeper than a divorce. To understand the weight of this, you have to understand the man who reportedly found it. Tom Bower spent years building one of the most explosive books ever written about the royals, and when Revenge hit shelves, it reportedly detonated. The book accused Meghan Markle of systematically dismantling Harry's relationships with his family, of manipulating palace staff, and of running a ruthless campaign to reshape her image while damaging the reputations of anyone in her path. The reaction it reportedly triggered from Meghan's camp was so aggressive and so coordinated that it left Bower with one question he could not shake. If the first book was this damaging, what was still out there that nobody had found yet? So he reportedly went back, tracking down around 80 people with direct first-hand access to Meghan's private world, asking each of them one simple thing: what did you actually see? And buried inside those interviews were reportedly 3 accounts that changed everything. So what did those 3 people allegedly reveal? The first reportedly came from former palace staff who worked inside the Sussex household. What they described, according to Bower, was not a difficult boss, but a control system so deliberate that several of them allegedly used nearly identical language without ever having spoken to one another. Meghan, they reportedly claimed, did not simply manage the household. She controlled every piece of information that reached Harry, messages from his family, calls from his oldest friends, concerns raised by staff, all of it allegedly passing through a filter she operated. One former aide reportedly told Bower that Harry lived inside a version of reality Meghan built for him every single day, so that by the time anyone tried to reach him with a different account, he had already been prepared to reject it. The second account reportedly came from Hollywood professionals who described the same cold pattern, an intensely close working bond followed by a clean cut the moment a person's usefulness ran out. But it was the third finding that Bower reportedly calls the most significant of all 80 interviews. What was it? A legal professional with first-hand knowledge of the Sussex finances reportedly told Bower that as early as 2019, separate financial structures were already being discussed internally, structures that would allegedly give Meghan independent control over the revenue from the Sussex brand. Not in 2022, when the marriage began showing public cracks, not after the move to California. This was reportedly 2019, while the couple was still inside the royal family and the love story was still being performed for the cameras. And behind it, according to Bower's sources, the financial exit architecture was already being drawn up. Now, Bower is no instinct publisher. A former barrister and BBC investigative journalist with over 40 years of going after powerful people, he reportedly built this the way he once built legal cases, with documents, timelines, and cross-reference sources, which is why the response to his first book is itself revealing. Meghan's team reportedly filed for an injunction to block it, which failed, then sent complaints at 3 of his sources. 2 reportedly went silent, the third refused, and yet Bower published anyway, returning now for a second edition knowing exactly what is coming at him. But to understand why this clause exists and why Meghan allegedly knew precisely what language to use, you have to go back much further to a marriage before Harry ever entered the picture. Most people barely remember Trevor Engelson, Meghan's first husband, a Hollywood producer she met as a struggling actress, married in Jamaica in 2011, and divorced just 2 years later, citing irreconcilable differences. It was quiet, clean, and over so fast it barely registered, but what reportedly happened inside that settlement may explain everything that followed. When Meghan sat down to negotiate, her ex-husband's lawyers were reportedly unprepared for what they encountered. She had allegedly arrived not with one lawyer, but a team, having read every line of every document, questioning every clause, pushing back on every term that did not serve her long-term independence. And what almost no one has reported, according to Bower's sources, is the specific arrangement she allegedly inserted, a clause giving her full ownership of any future earnings from projects she had developed during the marriage, even ones not yet generating income. Engelson reportedly realized only months later that it had cut him out of several projects he had helped build, describing it to a friend as opening a door he thought led to one room and finding it led somewhere else entirely. The same forward-looking logic reportedly appears almost verbatim in the 2020 amendment Harry would later sign. So what was the deeper lesson she allegedly carried out of that marriage? According to Bauer, it was darker than money. It was that the person who controls the story controls the outcome. When the split from Ingelson went public, Meghan allegedly managed the framing with a precision her own friends reportedly found unsettling. He was not painted as a villain. He was simply erased, irrelevant within a year. And the estrangement from her father, Thomas Markle, reportedly belongs in this same pattern. What has rarely been fully reported, according to a source close to the family, is that in the months before the royal wedding, Meghan's legal team allegedly issued Thomas a formal written communication warning that any media contact would breach a confidentiality arrangement he supposedly agreed to. Thomas has publicly denied ever signing such a thing, yet the existence of that communication reportedly suggests steps were taken to neutralize him before he had done anything. And around this same period, Bauer's researchers reportedly uncovered something that reframes the entire timeline. When Meghan began dating Harry in 2016, she allegedly did not wait to see where it was going. She reportedly hired the crisis management firm Sunshine Sachs almost immediately, a firm known not for celebrating new romances, but for handling high-stakes separations. So why would a woman entering a fresh relationship with a prince hire a firm like that on day one? Because Bauer's sources suggest she was not thinking about the honeymoon, she was thinking about the exit. By the time Harry slipped the ring onto her finger, Meghan had reportedly been following this approach for years, maintaining her own income, an independent identity, financial arrangements dependent on no one, and a crisis firm on retainer. Harry reportedly knew none of it. He was dazzled, broken, and certain he had found the one person who truly understood him, with no idea the woman beside him had allegedly already begun structuring the way out. But to grasp what he signed in 2020, you first need to understand that royal prenuptial agreements are nothing like ordinary ones. They are reportedly built to protect assets belonging not to the couple but to the crown, governing titles, trust properties, and what can be said about the family in the press. When Harry and Meghan signed their original agreement before the 2018 wedding, it was built to navigate the collision between that royal framework and California law, where anything earned during a marriage is jointly owned. The original tried to set boundaries, but it was reportedly the 2020 amendment that dismantled every protection Harry thought he had. And the timing of that signature, according to Bauer's sources, is the most chilling part of all. The amendment was reportedly placed in front of Harry within days of the announcement that he and Meghan were stepping back from royal duties. At that precise moment, he was reportedly facing the collapse of his royal identity, a public rupture with his brother, the loss of his security, and the terror of having no income or defined role for the first time in his life. It was allegedly presented as routine paperwork, a simple update for their new business activities. Harry reportedly trusted Meghan completely, so he signed. What he signed, according to Bauer's sources, was an intellectual property clause buried on page 14, one that allegedly gave Meghan primary ownership of the Sussex brand, their joint ventures, their media content, and the revenue tied to his memoir Spare, while listing her as business manager of all their shared enterprises. But Bauer reportedly describes one element as the real knife. The clause allegedly contains forward-looking language covering any future project built on assets, relationships, or platforms that originated during the marriage. So what does that actually mean for Harry? It means, according to Bauer, that even if Harry walked away tomorrow and built something entirely new, if it drew in any way on his royal background, his Invictus platform, or his Sussex profile, Meghan could reportedly have a legal claim to a share of it. It is allegedly not just a divorce clause but a financial leash with no expiry date, the name he was born with and the life he lived becoming, in legal terms, largely hers to control. And Bauer reportedly traced the language back to the very same lawyers who handled the Ingelson divorce, who had already seen how she operated. Harry allegedly signed it at the worst moment of his life, with no independent legal voice telling him to stop. But a clause on paper only matters if the architecture around it is built to match. And while Harry was publicly unraveling in London courtrooms over the following years, Meghan was reportedly back in California, quietly and systematically building an empire designed from its foundation to survive the end of the marriage. So how was that empire allegedly built? By 2022, the joint appearances reportedly dried up and the unified front began to crack. And while the press speculated about tension, Meghan was allegedly filing paperwork. American Riviera Orchard reportedly appeared first, trademarked under her name alone, no mention of Harry, then a podcast deal, again structured with her as sole proprietor. Even the earlier book reportedly carried no financial link to him, and the mechanism, according to a financial advisor who spoke to Bauer, allegedly involved single-member LLCs, companies owned entirely by one person and treated as separate from any marital estate, with at least 5 reportedly established in Meghan's name alone between 2022 and 2024, Harry named in none. The Netflix deal reportedly offers the clearest window, publicly reported at $100 million. It was allegedly never guaranteed, that figure being the maximum if every project was delivered. With several cancelled, the actual amount received before the deal was downgraded was reportedly around 40 million. And even the widely reported debt figure, Bauer's sources suggest, is allegedly structured so the liabilities appear jointly held while the burden attaches more heavily to Harry's side. Every advisor reportedly describing it with the same word, textbook. So with the fortress built and the liabilities allegedly aimed at him, what was the final move? According to Bauer, by 2023, every structure was locked into place, and in January 2026, Meghan reportedly rehired Sunshine Sachs. On the surface, a routine business decision. But people who understand divorce strategy reportedly told Bauer it was anything but, that you bring in a separation specialist months before filing so the public already has a version of events that cast you as the victim before a single document surfaces. And what has reportedly never been reported is the specific advice Meghan allegedly received from a senior Hollywood divorce attorney in late 2020 that the most effective way to dominate a California divorce involving a public figure spouse was to establish herself as the primary commercial driver before any separation. Every move from 2022 onward, the solo filings, the independent ventures, fronting all the media reportedly aligns precisely with that advice. And the most devastating dimension, sources close to Harry suggest, is custody, with California courts weighing the existing pattern of care, and Harry having spent much of 3 years abroad in courtrooms and at Invictus events while Meghan remained the day-to-day presence in the children's lives. What Bauer ultimately predicts is reportedly not just a divorce, but a complete dismantling, the Montecito home, majority control of the brand, a custody fight he may already be losing, and even the right to monetize his own royal identity potentially slipping from his grasp for years. And the portrait of Harry across it all is reportedly not of a foolish man, but a destroyed one. A boy who lost his mother at 12 and was trained to perform composure, carrying a wound so deep that those around him described it as more open than any personality trait. A man who by the time of the exit had reportedly no inner circle left except her. So is Harry truly about to lose everything, or is there still a way out of a trap he reportedly never knew existed? Tell me what you think in the comments, and if you want the next chapter of this unfolding story, stay close. This is Royal Pulse, where whispers around the crown come to light.